Greetings, my fellow warriors. So, I want to talk about something what will happen soon. Soon, we'll have Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac uplisted, maybe an IPO. What does it mean for you and me? It means that we'll make the money. But what to do with the money is maybe even bigger question than to make the money. So this time I would like to spend um, how to and what will happen, in case that you want to take out the money from the stocks or you want to reinvest, and what options do we have. So because bunch of us have like large capital gain, and that is in a range 25-30% we need to pay in case that we pull out the money. So that is bad. Nobody want to pay the taxes, not even our president. So, what to do and how to create the structure without paying the taxes, or but legally. So don't get me wrong. Um, so we have like a couple of options, and basically, wealthy people take the something what is called they borrow and take money based on the shares and put shares of the security. You probably heard about security backup line of credit, or um, and loan against the shares and the margin. And I want to talk about the few options what we have here, and some math. So in case that I know I made the money and I have, and my stocks are marginable, and or they it passes the maturity time when I can take the money out of them. So what is important when the stocks are up listed at New York Stock Exchange? Basically, very often, very fast. It depends from the company to the company. They allow that you take the margin against the share. How much it cost? Everybody heard that, margin call and this and that. And why is that happening? So basically, the biggest problem those people who take the margin is that they take too much. And I would like to that we two can calculate in case that for example, I have like $100,000 in shares. That is like the case scenario, and I want to take the margin either to reinvest the shares in case that I believe that that or some other shares will grow more than my cost of the credit, and what can I expect uh, when I will be and when I will have the margin call. So I created this. So in case that you have 100,000 shares in stocks, let's say you have one stock, Fannie Mae, and you have 100,000 shares, and it is uplisted. When it's uplisted in a 7 days, Robinhood or some other company will allow that you take the margin. In case that you take 20% margin against that money, so you have 100,000 shares, you take 20%. That means that you borrowed 20,000. You can take that 20,000, either spend the cash, or you can take reinvest by the stock again. When it will be the moment when, if the stock fell down, when you will get a margin call, it is at 71%. If the price of the stock drop down 71%, then you will be called, and that is a lot. So we have like previous period when Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were 15, 16, and now it's 6. Would that be a margin call in this case? Triple? No, not even then. So in case that we had a scenario that it had hit 16, you took the margin for 20,000. The stock price needs to fall below 4 in order that you get margin call. So it's not impossible, but it is, like, you don't need to worry at that level. I have also calculated in case that you have 50%. So on $100,000, you pull out 50,000. You borrow 50,000. In that case, the stock price needs to fall 43%. So let's say that for me it is easier that stock price reach 20, and at that point of time you accumulate $100,000. You pull out $50,000. What is the moment and how much this stocks needs to fall down in order that you receive the margin call? So it needs to fall down on 57%. If it is 57%, that is around so for 20 to 11, then it will trigger the margin call. But you can take and this amount that you borrow the money, you can take and add and buy more shares and move it in case that you want. And in case that you take 60% margin, that means that against this $100,000, you borrow 60,000, that is 60%. Then the stock price, if it falls down on a 60, on a fell down 33%, you will get a margin call. What is the 30% on so if the share price was 20, 30%, 30% should be that the price of the stock fell below 13. In that case, you get the margin, you enter into a margin call. So to say, we know that this scenario what we had, falling from 16 to 6 was dramatic scenario. It was like like it was. And in that case, even if you took like 20,000 against 100,000, you will be good. In case that you took um, let's say 43% on a 16, around $8 would be, no, even less, 7. So in case that you took, you had 100,000, you borrow 100,000, and stock price fell down from 60 to 7, you would get a margin call, but not before that. So, in that aspect, you can say, okay, if I know that my stock will go up or stay the stable price, I can take and borrow against the shares. Next question is, how much do I need to pay in order to get, like we all heard, oh, it costs them the money to take the margin or something like that. Yes, it does, but it is like a really small percentage. For example, on a Robinhood, they charge like 5% annually. So every year on those, uh, so I have 100,000, I borrow 50,000. So every year I need to pay $2,500 for the service that I did borrow those, took the margin. For example, the Schwab charge around 10%. And Schwab also gives some. They have like some better deals, but they're far away from the 5%. And they have, for example, the Schwab also have that uh, security backup line of credit SB lock or a loan against the shares, but that is also on 6 to 8%. What is a lot? In that case, in case loan against the shares, you have more security because you're not so easy called for the margin call in case that stock fell down during day and it discounts intraday, while the loan against the shares don't. So this is the table, and how much does it cost the interest rate on the money borrowed? And we see the Robinhood is 5%, and these interactive brokers have good price in case that you have more than 300,000 loan. So it's Schwab is bad in that aspect. When it is okay to borrow the money against the shares. So in case that I have money, first it is good for me, and what in case that I don't want to pay the taxes, and it's good for me to take the money. So the amount that you borrow from the margin from the SB lock, that is not taxable income because it is a credit, and so you can borrow the amount of the money and you will still have the shares. In case the share goes up, you took the money and the shares still went up, so you're good. In case that you take the money and you take and reinvest in for example, buy S&P 500, buy again the stock that you believe in. For example, if the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are like below 50, I'm buying because I believe that they will go to 300. So it is profitable to take the money and to invest again. In case that, let's say, you don't want to, you want to diversified, and you don't want to leverage too much in S&P or in Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and you want to go in S&P 500 or something like that, and you ask, okay, in case that I take this on a 5% interest, how much I need to how much I need to where to invest in order to gain the at least 5%, and one answer is S&P 500. So you can see that in the last 10 years S&P 500 did have the return of 15 to around 15%, but over the last 50 years historically it was 11.7. So in case that you take something on 5%, the loan, and you have like interest in the stuff what you took, you took 50,000, and you need to pay two and a half thousand per year interest, and you took that 50,000 and invest in S&P 500 that will bring like 10%, not even 11, but let's say 10, it is easier to calculate. On a 50,000 you will have 5,000 interest, and out of those 5,000 interest you need to pay 2,500, so you have like 2,000 clean, 2,500 clean. And basically the rich people do that, they leverage, and that 2,500, that 2,500 is basically free money, in the certain aspect. You didn't invest anything. You okay, you increased the risk, but overall you took the money from them, bought the S&P 500, and the difference between this growth and this what you need to pay is 2,500, so you have like clean money easy. And in case that S&P 500 grows more than 11%, but it grows like, let's say, 15%, what happened in the last 10 years on average, but this year it grew 20%, but let's say 15. In that case, on a 50,000 that you borrow, you will have 7,500 interest, 15%, and you need to pay 2,500, so you have 5,000 extra. And so is the margin, playing with margin, yeah, good? Yes, but don't go too high. Like, because 33% drop is possible, 71% is impossible, 43% it is um, possible but not probable. So in case that I take the loan and margin, I will just go between these two. Probably I will calculate how much is, but maybe even like, like, I as I know how I'm leaning toward the risk, I will probably take 50% against my shares, and especially if I know, for example, that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will go in S&P 500, and that is happening, and I believe that stock price will rise, and then yes, I will take and borrow against them. And what is also good, so you have like 100,000, the stock share grow to 200,000. You took 50,000, and this grow another 100,000. You can take another 50,000 as additional. So it follows the how much you can borrow, and but the whole idea is that during all time you're not losing the stock, and you're still investing in stock, plus you can take extra money and invest more in a same or some other security. And as I said, like, just borrowing on a, let's say, 5% the money, and making 15%, what was an average, gives you like 10% profit. And whatever you do, you just took one from one bucket to put in the other, and at the end of the year you take and skim the milk. So that is the answer, what to do in case the we get the money. And what I want to also to say is, if you believe the Fannie Mae or some other stock, S&P 500 or Fannie Mae, will grow more than 5% per year, yes, then it is reasonable to have the loan against the shares or to have margin. For me personally, I was thinking to take loan against the shares, but now when I saw that Robinhood is giving like 5% interest, uh, the the margin cost is 5%. I will probably go with Robinhood, not because I like Robinhood or whatever. It is just because it is cheaper money compared to Schwab that I did use up to now. And so I will put everything in a Robinhood, take the margin, buy again whatever I want. In case I said, like, if it is less than, if the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, I expect them to grow more than 5% per year. Yes, I will take them. If not, maybe I'll diversify, but most probably will die. I will go, like, I'm a high risk guy, so uh, I will probably go with maybe like partially in TQQQ and partially in Fannie Mae. We'll see, and partially to buy my wife a boat. But that's the other story. Stay well, my friends.